The Intergalactic Bureau of Order and Compliance, IBOC, had never encountered anything like humanity before. In their eyes, war was a dignified, bureaucratic affair. Meticulously planned campaigns, elegantly worded declarations of hostilities, and of course, the all-important paperwork that documented every strategic maneuver. Wars were waged with a certain decorum. There were proper ways to issue a surrender, and even battle tactics were governed by a galaxy-wide agreement on acceptable levels of aggression. So, when an insignificant species from a backwater star system violated the sacred order of interstellar protocol by detonating a warp drive prototype in an interstellar no-parking zone, the IBOC had no choice but to act. A formal 8-hour war declaration speech was drafted, revised, and delivered with the precision of a masterfully composed legal document. Supreme Director Xylophon Quark stood in front of an audience of 18,000 assembled diplomats and military officials, 6 of his eyes gleaming under the polished glow of the Grand Compliance Hall. His tendrils quivered with the importance of the moment. By the power vested in me through Galactic Ordinance 1242B, and with the full backing of the War Procedures Compliance Act of 6235, it is with great solemnity that we, the Intergalactic Bureau of Order and Compliance, formally the live feed from Earth, interrupted his speech. On every official IBOC screen across the galaxy, the image of a confused, disheveled human engineer appeared, holding what seemed to be a half-eaten sandwich. He squinted at the camera. Yeah, hi. So, we're at war now. Just got the memo. Real quick, though, who are you guys? Gasps rippled through the assembly. Supreme Director Xylophon Quark's tendrils twitched in indignation. We are the IBOC, he said, his voice shaking with the weight of his authority. The most powerful and civilized entity in the galaxy. The human on the screen took a large bite of his sandwich, chewed thoughtfully, and then nodded. Neat. Anyway, can we get a rain check on this whole war thing? We've got a big football game this weekend. Maybe push it to Monday? The connection cut out. The hall fell silent. Director Xylophon Quark inhaled deeply through his primary, breathing spherical, and muttered, "Unacceptable." He turned to his second-in-command, General Prim. "Prepare the fleet. We will strike immediately and end this nonsense." Meanwhile, on Earth, military leadership convened in a conference room that doubled as a pizza storage facility. Commander Jack Mad Dog Reynolds lounged in his chair, balancing a throwing knife on one finger, while Captain Lisa Hellfire Martinez chugged an energy drink like it was a life-or-death mission. "All right," Jack said, grinning. "Who? Pissed off the space nerds?" A sleep-deprived engineer raised his hand. "So yeah, we might have accidentally warped a prototype into some intergalactic zone we weren't supposed to. But, in our defense, the sign was really small." Captain Martinez nodded. "Fair enough. So, what's their deal?" Grandma Edna Kowalski, the 80-year-old war strategist, adjusted her bifocals and grumbled. "Bureaucrats. They think everything needs to be done by the book. They've probably got battle strategies filed in triplicate and a war manual longer than my grocery list." Commander Reynolds cracked his knuckles. "Oh, we're gonna have fun with this." General Prim's first move was a tactical precision strike on what he believed to be a key human industrial facility. The target, a sprawling structure filled with strange metal devices and strange human personnel in uniforms. It was a beer factory. The IBOC fleet, with its meticulously calibrated weaponry, fired upon the structure, expecting a satisfying display of destruction. Instead, the facility exploded in a magnificent fireball of brewing equipment and kegs, raining down frothy alcohol across the region. The humans responded with an immediate counterattack by hacking into IBOC's communications and broadcasting a loop of cat videos. General Prim, who had never once deviated from his sacred battle manual, stared at the main view screen as tiny Earth creatures pawed at invisible objects in the air. He turned to his officers. "What is the meaning of this?" One of his aides hesitated. "It appears to be a form of psychological warfare, sir." Prim's face darkened. They are more twisted than I thought. Then, a new sound blasted. Over their communications, a high-energy, saxophone-fueled anthem from ancient Earth culture. It was Careless Whisper. The Ibok fleet, unprepared for the sheer unpredictability of human tactics, hesitated. This was not how wars were supposed to be fought. There were supposed to be strategic engagements, honorably exchanged fire, and properly submitted surrender forms if necessary. Instead, their screens were flooded with memes. Their officers suffered morale collapse from the weaponized saxophone music, and worst of all, reports were coming in that human soldiers were airdropping from ships wielding nothing but beer kegs and folding chairs. The Ibok's first battle against humanity ended in total disaster. Supreme Director Xylophon Quark reviewed the footage of the engagement. His eyes twitched violently. "What are we dealing with?" he whispered in horror. General Prim sighed as he read the latest war report, which included a list of human warship names. USS Bad Idea, HM's YOLO the Unsanctioned. Pancake Grandpa's Revenge Prim's tentacles drooped. This was going to be a long war. The Intergalactic Bureau of Order and Compliance was not designed to handle this kind of war. General Prim sat in his office aboard the flagship Regulation Enforcer, staring blankly at the after-action report. His normally pristine desk was in disarray, a testament to his deteriorating sanity. The last battle had been an unmitigated disaster. Instead of a clean, efficient military engagement, the humans had responded with a level of absurdity that defied all logic. They had hijacked the Ibok's communication networks, not to disrupt battle coordination, but to broadcast an unending loop of Earth's most perplexing cultural artifacts. His officers had suffered a morale breakdown after enduring 3 straight hours of an ancient human chant known as Baby Shark, an atrocity so vile that one admiral had resigned mid-battle. Another fleet had been tricked into surrendering when human forces blasted an eerie tune called "Never Gonna Give You Up," convincing them it was a new, unbreakable form of psychological warfare. And then there was the battlefield itself. Instead of deploying traditional formations, the humans had taken to modifying their warships in ways that were, to put it mildly, unsanctioned. Reconnaissance reports described human vessels covered in graffiti with messages such as "Your bureaucracy sucks" and "We ran out of fuel, but not out of hope." One ship, piloted by a human named Lieutenant Danny Chaos Gremlin O'Toole, had successfully infiltrated an Ibok station by submitting a fake work order, declaring his vessel a Galactic Sanitation Inspection Unit. He and his crew then spent 2 hours replacing critical station infrastructure with inflatable pool toys before escaping, leaving behind a hand-scrawled note that read, "We were never here." And then, of course, there was the issue of Grandma, Edna Kowalski. No one in the Ibok had anticipated a civilian, an elderly one, at that, taking direct command of military engagements. The 80-year-old human war strategist had single-handedly caused 2 admirals to resign in disgrace. During one engagement, she had hacked into the enemy fleet's emergency broadcast system and spent 45 minutes berating General Prim personally. "Listen here, Sonny," she had said, adjusting her reading glasses. "I don't know how your species does things, but back in my day, if someone knocked on your door looking for trouble, you smacked them with a wooden spoon and told them to get lost. And I am holding the biggest metaphorical wooden spoon in the galaxy." Prim, despite his extensive training in combat psychology, had found himself apologizing to the old woman before hastily cutting the transmission. That could never happen again. The Ibok had been the undisputed authority of the galaxy for millennia. Their rules had governed the known universe. They had won countless wars, dictated policy, and ensured that every civilization adhered to the sacred order of compliance. The humans, however, were an anomaly, a mistake in the system, a blight upon the very notion of structured military engagement. They needed to be stopped. And so, the Ibok convened the most sacred of all war councils, a subcommittee. The Supreme Director himself presided over the emergency meeting, Hundreds of bureaucrats, war analysts, and legal advisors filled the grand chamber, their datapads brimming with compliance reports, engagement logs, and official complaint forms detailing the humans' many infractions. "Enough is enough," Supreme Director Xylophon Quark intoned gravely. "We have tried to fight these humans with dignity and order. It is time to escalate matters." There were murmurs of agreement throughout the hall. General Prim cleared his throat. "We must acknowledge that our opponents do not adhere to conventional warfare. They fight using—" He paused, struggling to find the words. "Nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. Their tactics are erratic, absurd, and frankly, an insult to military professionalism." A bureaucratic officer raised a hand. "They have also violated the Intergalactic Convention on Properly Formatted Warfare. Section 302 explicitly states that battle formations must be declared in advance." "Exactly," Prim said, slamming a tentacle against the table. "But they don't declare anything. They just show up with warships that look like they were assembled with space duct tape and stolen office supplies." There were horrified gasps. Another officer spoke up. "Their lead tactician, the one known as Grandma Edna, has refused to submit any official battle plans before engagements." More gasps. Someone fainted. The Supreme Director took a long, solemn breath. "Then we must adjust our strategy. We shall deploy the Compliance Armada, our most powerful fleet, and we will enforce order through sheer, overwhelming bureaucracy. We will file so many sanctions, legal actions, and diplomatic restrictions that the humans will be buried under regulation." General Prim nodded. "I have already dispatched an official cease and desist order to their primary military headquarters, VI." Supreme Director sat forward, his 6 eyes gleaming. "And what was their response?" General Prim hesitated. Then, reluctantly, he pulled up a transmission on the central display. The humans had responded with a drawing. It was a crude sketch of a cartoon stick figure flipping them off, labeled, "Our Official Response." A deep silence fell over the council. "Deploy the Armada," the Supreme Director whispered. On Earth, the response to the IBOC's latest threat was equally sophisticated. Commander Jack Mad Dog Reynolds leaned back in his chair, spinning a pen between his fingers. "So, the space nerds are sending their biggest fleet at us?" Captain Lisa, Hellfire Martinez, cracked open another energy drink. "Yep." Grandma Edna Kowalski was busy knitting a scarf, unfazed. "Well, that's just plain rude." Admiral Bryce, who had been attempting to maintain some level of professionalism, rubbed his temples. "We need an actual strategy here." Jack grinned. "Don't worry, we already have a plan." Admiral Bryce frowned. "You do?" "Of course. It's called Operation Absolute Buffoonery." "I hate it already." Jack ignored him. "Step 1. We rename all our ship registries to meaningless gibberish so the IBOC gets stuck processing their battle reports for weeks," Lisa added. "Step 2. We hack into their flagship's intercom system and replace all their alarm sounds with careless whisper." "And step 3? Bryce asked, dreading the answer. Jack's grin widened. "We win." A long pause. Grandma Edna set down her knitting. "Well, that sounds reasonable." Bryce groaned. "This is madness." Jack clapped a hand on his shoulder. "No, my friend, this is humanity." And so, as the largest bureaucratic fleet in the galaxy prepared to impose order on humanity, Earth's forces prepared in the only way they knew how, by turning the war into the most absurd, unpredictable, and chaotic mess the galaxy had ever seen. The battle was about to begin, and the IBOC had no idea what was coming. The Compliance Armada had never faced such a challenge before. This was the pride of the Intergalactic Bureau of Order and Compliance, a fleet meticulously designed for enforcing galactic law and maintaining order. Every ship was standardized to perfection, each identical in design, every battle formation rehearsed with mathematical precision, and every maneuver logged in the appropriate war documentation forms. They were an unbreakable wall of bureaucracy, an iron-fisted enforcer of rules, and yet, within mere moments of arriving in Earth's orbit, everything began falling apart. The first sign of disaster struck when Admiral Vorlax, commanding officer of the fleet, received an urgent high-priority transmission from what was supposed to be Earth's Central Military Command. "This is Supreme Executor of Earth Defense, Captain Douglas Fart-Knuckle McGee," the message declared in a deadpan tone. "As per Intergalactic Battle Code subsection 14, paragraph B, we must formally request that you fill out Form 66Q before engaging in hostile action. Failure to do so will be considered a violation of interstellar engagement laws." Admiral Vorlax blinked. "What?" His communications officer tentatively raised a tentacle. Sir, we don't have Form 66Q in our records." "What do you mean we don't have it?" It doesn't exist, sir." "But it sounds official." The communication cut out before Vorlax could issue a response, then before he could even begin. Composing a sternly worded demand for clarification, another message came in. This time, it was a video. The feed showed a group of humans standing in a military command center, holding up a massive hand-painted banner that simply read, "Welcome to hell, space nerds." The room behind them was filled with what could only be described as absolute chaos. Technicians playing hacky-sack with a grenade, engineers haphazardly duct-taping components onto what was presumably an active missile, and a soldier roller skating, passed in full combat gear while chugging an energy drink. Then, as if on cue, a battle klaxon blared throughout the human base. But it wasn't an alarm. It was the opening saxophone riff to Careless Whisper. On board the Regulation Enforcer, General Prim struggled to maintain control of his forces as the humans unleashed what could only be described as complete and utter madness. The Compliance Armada had attempted a coordinated attack, deploying their ships in the pre-approved standard battle formation number 17, as dictated in the iBox 3,000-page official Guidelines for Respectable Warfare. It was a formation that had crushed every rebellion, dismantled entire planetary militaries, and brought order to 100 star systems. It had never once failed, until now, because the humans didn't follow the rules. Instead of engaging in a respectable fleet formation, Earth's warships arrived sideways. Not just that, many of them were spinning, drifting erratically, or outright tumbling through space as if piloted by complete lunatics. One of the IBOC officers gasped. "Sir, they appear to be performing barrel rolls." Prim's eyes widened in horror. "That's completely unregulated." It got worse. Rather than sending any kind of strategic opening salvo, the humans began launching garbage at the enemy fleet. Not missiles. Not torpedoes. Just trash. A crate labeled "Property of Earth," absolutely not a weapon, collided with the hull of an IBOC warship. Seconds later, the ship's defensive AI suffered a complete meltdown as it attempted to classify the object. The ship, designed to handle precision attacks and traditional weapons, had no protocols for weaponized litter. Then came the music. Every single communication frequency in the Compliance Armada was suddenly hijacked. At first, it was more Careless Whisper, blaring across the entire fleet. Officers clutched their heads in agony. Then came the next phase. A new sound filled the airwaves, one that sent shivers down the spines of every IBOC officer. Baby Shark, do. Total, absolute panic. Admiral Vorlax ripped off his headset, shaking. "They're monsters! Monsters!" General Prim was barely holding it together. They must be trying to break us psychologically. Hold firm! Hold firm!" Then, the final insult. Every warship in. The human fleet activated external LED displays, flashing messages directly at the IBOC fleet. Messages like, "Your mom filled out her war form wrong. Obey this, eat our exhaust. We're coming for you, space bureaucrats. The USS." Bad Idea barreled straight toward the Regulation Enforcer, blaring the Jaws theme over an open comms channel. Before the IBOC could react, A human soldier, strapped to a chair, was ejected from the ship, spinning wildly through space. What is that?" an officer stammered. Prim squinted. His blood turned cold. "That is a Navy SEAL." The IBOC officers screamed as the chair-bound human collided with their viewport, punched the glass from the outside, and began manually ripping open the airlock. Meanwhile, aboard Earth's flagship, Grandma Edna Kowalski was directing the battle, in her usual fashion, knitting a scarf while terrifying everyone around her. She sat calmly at the helm of the command ship, sipping her tea. "Did you send that nice admiral his complaint form yet?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," one of the officers replied. "We mailed it express. Should arrive in 6 to 8 business days." "Good. Now, what's this nonsense about their flagship still being operational?" Captain Lisa Hellfire Martinez grinned. "Don't worry, we've got a plan." At that moment, an explosion rocked the enemy fleet. The Compliance Armada, unable to handle the sheer absurdity of human warfare, was collapsing. One by one, IBOC warships began turning away, not out of strategic retreat, but out of sheer exhaustion. Their officers had suffered cat video fatigue, their soldiers were on the verge of mental breakdown from non-stop meme exposure, and their ships were filled with so much bureaucratic red tape that they couldn't even fire weapons without filling. Out of battle incident form, the regulation enforcer was the last ship standing. General Prim, sweating, turned to his officers. "Ready, the emergency surrender paperwork." But before they could even initiate the procedure, a new transmission came in. It was Grandma Edna. She adjusted her bifocals, stared directly into the camera, and said, "Boys, go home." That was the final straw. The Compliance Armada immediately sent out an official surrender transmission, formatted, of course, according to proper regulations. A 10,000-page document was transmitted to Earth, outlining every reason why they were surrendering. Humanity responded by sending a single-page reply. "Get wrecked. LOL." The IBOC had lost, and Earth had won the most ridiculous war in galactic history. The enemy fleet limped away. The humans celebrated in the only way they knew how, by throwing an intergalactic keg party. Ships docked together. Soldiers, pilots, and engineers clinked glasses, laughed, and recounted their insane victories. Grandma Edna watched it all with a satisfied nod. "Good work, boys," she said, raising her tea. "Now, who wants cookies?" The war was over, and humanity had proven once and for all that unregulated chaos was the deadliest weapon in the galaxy. The Intergalactic Bureau of Order and Compliance was in shambles. Supreme Director Xylophon Quark had never, in his 6 lifetimes of service, imagined defeat, especially not a defeat so humiliating. The once pristine halls of the Grand Compliance Chamber were now filled with the terrified murmurs of bureaucrats, military officers, and legal advisors, all scrambling to make sense of the unthinkable. The war against humanity should have been a clean, strategic engagement, an exercise in structured warfare that would have resulted in a swift annexation. Instead, the galaxy had been introduced to the single most destabilizing force it had ever encountered: absolute, unregulated, unfiltered humanity. Xylophon sagged in his ornate compliance chair. His tentacles trembled. His empire was crumbling, and he had no idea how to stop it. The humans had ruined everything. His admirals were resigning in droves, unable to recover from the psychological trauma of meme-based warfare. His greatest warships were stuck in bureaucratic limbo because of the unholy amount of paperwork humanity had unleashed upon them. Entire sectors of the Empire had begun to ignore official mandates, inspired by Earth's defiance, and worst of all, his personal battle report from General Prim had arrived with the most unforgivable statement in galactic history. "Sir, I think they were having fun." Xylophon felt his stomach churn. It was one thing to be defeated. It was another to be mocked. He stood, raising all 6 of his arms. "We will not let this stand," he declared. "We may have lost the battle, but we will not lose the war. The humans have mocked us. They have humiliated us. They have disrespected the fundamental sanctity of bureaucracy itself." There were murmurs of agreement, a few nods. He slammed a fist down on his desk. "This is an emergency. Activate Protocol 5000. The room went silent. A single bureaucrat swallowed hard. "Sir, are you certain?" Xylophon narrowed his 6 eyes. "The humans have made a mockery of us. It is time we show them what true order looks like." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the greatest victory party in history was in full swing. The interstellar kegger was legendary. Navy SEALs, pilots, engineers, and even a few diplomats were celebrating aboard a fleet of duct-taped-together warships. Someone had managed to hack an IBOC bureaucratic drone, forcing it to dance. Several alien ambassadors from neutral factions had joined the festivities, eager to experience the chaos that had defeated an empire. Captain Lisa Hellfire Martinez was chugging a beer while simultaneously planning Earth's next interstellar expansion strategy. Commander Jack Mad Dog Reynolds was leading a fully improvised wrestling match in zero gravity. Grandma Edna Kowalski was knitting a commemorative "We Beat the Nerds" sweater while berating a Marine for not eating enough. And Admiral Bryce, one of the only people still trying to pretend humanity had rules, was reading through the IBOC's official surrender. He sighed. "Okay, so technically we won. The IBOC is pulling out of human space, and they've agreed to recognize Earth as an independent power." Jack, who was currently upside down, shot finger guns at him. "Nice." Lisa, still chugging her beer, gave him a thumbs up. Bryce hesitated. "But there's a problem." Everyone stopped. Jack frowned. "Is it space taxes? I hate space taxes." Lisa squinted. "Did we, accidentally start another war?" Grandma Edna looked up from her knitting. "Did someone forget to say thank you? Because I will personally go teach them some manners." Bryce sighed. "No, it's worse. The IBOC just declared something called Protocol 5000. There was a long silence. Jack blinked. "That sounds bad," Lisa nodded. "Yeah, that's bad name energy." Bryce scrolled through his data pad, his face growing more and more horrified. "Protocol 5000. It's their ultimate bureaucratic weapon. It's not a military strike. It's not a counterattack." He took a deep breath. "It's complete and total regulatory annihilation." Jack sat up. "Explain." Bryce pinched the bridge of his nose. "They're drowning us in paperwork." Lisa snorted. "Pfft, we already ignore paperwork. What's the big deal?" Bryce held up his screen. "Lisa, they are sanctioning us for every single thing we have ever done wrong." A notification pinged across every screen in the fleet. Jack leaned in. It read, "Intergalactic Bureau of Order and Compliance. Official violation notice. Total fines owed. 47 quadrillion credits. Outstanding warrants for the following offenses. 1387, 542, 8 and 12. Required paperwork to file an appeal. 945,000 pages." Jack choked on his drink. "What?" Lisa squinted. "Wait, are they fining us for not declaring our weapons properly?" Bryce scrolled. "Yeah, and also for war crimes." Jack blinked. "We committed war crimes?" Bryce hesitated. Well, apparently, blasting never. "Gonna give you up across enemy frequencies violates the Geneva Convention." Lisa shrugged. "Hey, worth it." Jack waved a hand. "All right, whatever. We just ignore their stupid paperwork." Bryce sighed. "No, Jack, you don't understand. They are weaponizing bureaucracy. They are shutting down our trade routes. They are freezing our banking systems. They are denying us access to warp lanes." Grandma Edna raised an eyebrow. "So they're trying to beat us with regulations?" Bryce nodded. Edna grinned. "Oh, these poor stupid little aliens," she said, cracking her knuckles. "They don't know who they're messing with." Jack frowned. Edna, you got a plan?" She stood. "You bet your wrinkled ass I do. The battle against Protocol 5000 was fought with pens, legal loopholes, and sheer human spite. Earth's greatest lawyers were assembled. Internet trolls were mobilized. Petty municipal officials were drafted into military service, and Grandma Edna personally led the charge. Overnight, Humanity clogged the IBOC's entire bureaucratic system with so many counter-lawsuits, regulation, disputes, and improperly formatted appeal forms that the IBOC's entire judicial branch collapsed. One particularly deadly legal maneuver involved a poorly worded galactic zoning regulation that technically reclassified IBOC headquarters as an unauthorized lemonade stand. Xylophone Tequok received the final legal notice at 3 a.m. Galactic Standard Time. It simply read, "Dear nerds, your government is now illegal. You have 30 days to vacate." Xylophone collapsed in utter defeat. The IBOC was dead. Earth had officially won. A month later, humanity hosted the greatest victory parade in galactic history. Marching bands played. Confetti cannons, armed and dangerous, fired in every direction. Someone piloted a stolen IBOC warship down Main Street, blaring "Never Gonna Give You Up." The IBOC's final surrender was signed, on a pizza box, and the final transmission, from Earth to the galaxy, read, "Next time, don't mess with Navy SEALs and grandmas." And thus, the most ridiculous war in galactic history came to an end. Humanity had proven that the most dangerous weapon in the universe wasn't firepower, but pure, unfiltered stupidity, and the galaxy would never be the same again.